Now, let me just start by saying there's a lack of lighting in the room today for this video because last night at 1 a.m. when I tried to record a video, I smashed my light. Now, it was probably like a $20 lamp that was just put in front of a diffuser or behind a diffuser, but the reality is it did the job, so I'm going to have to invest in some new lights, and I'll do that, but for the next couple of videos, I'm going to be sitting here in relative darkness, so I guess any bad luck is deserving of a like. Is that how it works? I don't know. Subscribing to the channel as well kind of helps. But anyways, let's get into the video. Enough of that stuff. So I could go through a number of teams in the NBA that have somewhat promising young cores, like the Chicago Bulls. The OKC Thunder obviously have a boatload of picks, and that's kind of where people are getting to with their promising core. Teams like the Knicks, the Cavs, all of these young teams that have some kind of promising pieces, and all of these teams, all of these teams, even the Detroit Pistons, get more coverage than the San Antonio Spurs, and I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me, and it shouldn't make sense to you, because I'm looking at a Spurs team that just won their first game of the season, but I don't really care about that. I don't care if they make the playoffs or not. I'm looking at a team that just won with DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker, and Keldon Johnson starting, Devin Vassell getting serious minutes off the bench, and Derek White hasn't even played yet, who was their second best player in the bubble and looked as though he might have broken out after he went on a bit of a scoring streak. So make it make sense to me that this team isn't getting the same coverage as a lot of other teams. I think the only thing I can come up with when talking about why this Spurs team doesn't get the same kind of coverage as other teams is, well, yes, they're not the same big markets as New York and Chicago, that's one, but at the same time, they don't have those high-end draft picks, which people kind of always associate with high upside players, when at the same time, you've got DeJounte Murray, who just had his best game in potentially 2 years since his ACL injury. Lonnie Walker looks as though he might have turned a corner. He's shooting the ball incredibly well, has the athleticism to be a high upside defender and a high upside finisher at the rim, which he's shown flashes of. He's still got a long way to go, but at the very least, he's a very good three-point shooter, and was shooting over 40% for the back end of last season, and continued on that way for the first game of this season. You then have Derek White, who, as I alluded to, is in the best form of his career in the bubble, averaging like 20 points a game. He's one of the better guard defenders in the entire NBA, and he's just a really solid overall player who's now locked up for a further 4 years, I believe, on a new contract, and some people thought it was quite sizable. I thought it was relatively decent. He doesn't have the numbers that some other guys might put up, but I think what we saw in the bubble, if that can translate to the regular season, and then you add in his defense, his solid playmaking, his playoff experience where he was fantastic in that series against the Denver Nuggets, I think there's nothing really wrong with his contract. There's every reason to believe he's going to get better, and if he does get better, I'm perfectly fine with the price they pay. You've then got Devin Vassell, who is arguably the most impressive of any rookie during the preseason, and showed exactly what you would have wanted from someone who was selected with the Spurs' first lottery pick in like 20 years. He came in, he's someone who can shoot the ball. He does a bit more than people give him credit for, because on that Florida State team, he didn't really have license to go out and create for himself and for others, but when he did have license to do that on a couple of occasions, took full opportunity in a couple of Florida State games where he was incredibly impressive. And in the preseason, we saw that he's going to be a good NBA player. I think no one really doubts that he's going to be, at the very least, a good NBA player. He was someone that a lot of people thought was just going to be good, with the potential to maybe even show higher upside, considering he never really got his chance to be the lead guy in that Florida State team, or at least lead the offense like some other college guys do. And then I haven't even mentioned Keldon Johnson, who's arguably the most impressive of any of these young guys, and he gets pretty much no coverage. I don't think half the people watching the NBA even know who he is, and they're going to find out pretty soon, because in the bubble, he was incredibly good, and he does something that I really like to see out of a young player, and that's drawing contact. There's something that sometimes you can't teach, and something that you definitely need if you want to be an elite scorer, or a very good scorer at the very least, and that is finding a way to get to the free throw line. Normally it takes players a couple of years. Some players, like you look at Joel Embiid's first year, he was getting like 7 free throw attempts a game, and now it's translated, I think he's up to 9 or something. I could be wrong, but you get the point. These kind of elite scorers, they get to the free throw line. Now, some people that I've had question marks over, like a Jamal Murray, they don't get to the free throw line, and that's when you see them have those big inconsistencies in scoring performances. That's why Keldon Johnson, over his very early career, like 12 to 13 games. He played 5 games spaced out over the first 4 months for a combined about 15 minutes, and then the last 12 games of the season he played consecutively and gradually got more and more minutes until we're at the point of the start of this season, and he's starting, and already coming in and making an impact. The thing about Keldon Johnson, yes, he draws contact, but he can also shoot the ball. He can do a number of things, and he's just aggressive getting to the rim. Now, there was one move I saw in the Spurs game that was just, it screamed star potential. So he comes around and picks up the ball at the three-point line, and then he has a really nice hesitation that really fakes out and freezes the defender. That defender is now out of the picture. He then puts his head down and drives straight at Jonas Valanciunas, who is a pretty hefty guy. Someone standing in the paint. He was ready for contact in Valanciunas, and he was ready to probably expect to alter a shot of someone noticeably smaller than him, and Johnson just drove straight at his chest and put it in. And there was a couple of occasions where he just put his head down and got to the rim, and that's why he tends to get so much contact. When you mix someone who can shoot the ball, it means you can't sag off, and then his explosiveness and his willingness to get to the rim. Some people have the tools, they just choose not to use them. He's got the tools and he chooses to use them, and it's already garnered great results. In the bubble, he averaged around 5 free throw attempts a game. To start the season, he had 7, and if he can continue at that pace, there's no reason he doesn't average 15 points a game, because someone who shoots 80% from the line, if you're getting 6 attempts a game, that's already 4 to 5 easy points every single game. You then hit a couple of threes, and all of a sudden all you need is a couple of layups and a couple of drives to the rim, and there's your 15 points. It's that simple, the game of basketball, isn't it? Like, why can't everyone be like that? But you know what I mean? If he can do that, then there's no reason he's not going to be a consistent scorer already. And he's already shown those flashes in the 12 or so games he's played. And that's a reason why his scoring has been so good. And that's a reason why Spurs fans really like him, because he does all the right things. And keep in mind, this game was coming off pretty much no preseason, and it looks like he did not skip a beat. That's incredibly impressive. I haven't even talked about Luka Samanic, who I think, when you look at him now, he's a high upside guy, given his skill set and his height. They might have wanted to see more promise out of him at this stage, but you do have a chance to kind of stash him away and just hope that he gets better and becomes that high upside guy, because at the moment, a lot of these young players scream to me like they're going to be good players. Keldon Johnson has star potential. DeJounte Murray potentially. Lonnie Walker, these guys might have star potential, but they're not the Ja Morants, the Zion Williamsons of the world. So that's why when you have someone like Samanic, who could potentially not even play another NBA game. I mean, he probably will, but you know what I mean? He's not looked great, but at the same time, he's got the skill set and the height and some of the intangibles to make him really good. And if they could add this piece to the team that they already have and they're already developing, that could be a difference maker. And now they've got the time to kind of let him wait in the wings and develop, because this team already looks really solid, and they're not going to struggle throughout the season, because you've got guys like Demar Derozan, who ESPN thinks is the 150th best player in the world, dropping near triple doubles in the opening season of the game after being incredibly good in the bubble and leading that team to 5-2. The premise of this video is about the young guys, but at the same time, the reason the Spurs are going to be better than people expect this year is because of guys like DeRozan. People don't give him enough credit for how much he's changed his game. He went from a scorer to someone who can playmake to a very good playmaker now. Like, he's routinely giving you 6 to 7 to even 9 assists on any given night. And he's sharing the load. He's not a ball hog anymore. He can take the ball in clutch situations, which he's shown multiple times. He showed in the bubble. That's how they got multiple wins. He wasn't afraid to take the shots and make the shots, and he did so at a very good efficiency. But at the same time, he knows that the young guys need to get the ball in their hands, and he has no problems doing that. He makes the right passes, he draws the defense, and then he kicks out. He made multiple passes where he got into the heart of the defense and kicked out to an open shooter, and let guys like Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker splash it down from beyond the arc. That's the kind of player he is now. So don't think of Demar Derozan as someone who can't defend, can't pass the ball, and just takes contested mid-range shots. No, he's much smarter than that and has a game much more suited to really developing these young guys. And that's why I think it's pretty good that they keep him along the way. I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping someone like DeRozan on the team. And if a team stumps up a piece or two to get him to a contender during the year, then by all means do it. But at the same time, if he lets his contract wind down, if he re-signs in San Antonio, I don't think there's any negatives from any way, shape, or form of having DeRozan on your team, because he's shown that he's still a very good player who makes the right decisions and isn't afraid to give up the ball a bit more than he once would have. So I think DeRozan gets a bad rap because of things he used to do, when people don't realize that he's a completely different player. Put some respect on DeMar's name, just please. When I look around to the league, yeah, I see the young superstars, and that's what I think San Antonio don't have yet. They've got the potential with guys like Keldon Johnson, who could potentially turn into an all-star type guy. But at the very least, they've got Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, DeJounte Murray, Derek White, and Devin Vassell. 5 players that I can't see not becoming high-end role players. I can't not see that happen. And that's rare. That's how you build teams. And then obviously you need that star player. And when you've got 5 players that are at the very least going to be high-end role players and are still young that we don't know what they can be, who's to say one of those doesn't turn into a star player? I mean, the odds are pretty favorable, and they've got another pick next year that maybe it's a lottery pick, maybe it's not. We've seen the Spurs over the last couple of years. We've seen the Spurs over the last 20 years. It doesn't matter if it's the 40th pick or the 12th pick. They're going to make it work one way or another. And if they do happen to have a poor season, like a lot of people are predicting, and finish with like the 6th pick in the draft that has a lot of talent, then maybe that's where they get their future superstar. But at the very least, this team needs a lot more credit for what they're doing. Not to mention you've got Greg Popovich, who's going to do his very best to coach these young guys the right habits and turn them into future stars. All those rumors about Popovich wanting to retire, they've gone out the window. Do you think it's a coincidence that these young players look so good and Popovich now doesn't want to retire? It's just interesting, I think. I think you look at the San Antonio team and it's one of the most bright young cores in the entire NBA. A young core, not just one young star. A young core, which is what builds championship level teams. They're legit. So if you did enjoy the video, a like would be greatly appreciated. Subbing to the channel as well. I'm trying to hit 20k at some point in time. Anyways, I'll catch you next time. Bye.